Servers Part 1: Web servers, file servers, and print servers. File servers store, transfer, migrate, synchronize, and archive files. Let's take a look at this basic network map. Here we have our local area network, our LAN, and we have some computers, some servers, and some printers. And here is our file server. But any computer can act as a file server of sorts. For example, this computer might be running Windows 10. It could be a file server. All you need to do is create a share on that local system and then point remote computers to that share, either by browsing the network or through a mapped network drive. However, on a typical Windows client computer such as this, you're going to be limited. Those shares are going to be limited in the amount of simultaneous connections allowed. That's going to be 20 max to that system at the same time. So for larger network environments, we need a real server of some sort, a separate box altogether. Examples of actual server software include Microsoft Windows Server, Mac OS Server, and the various types of Linux server versions, for example, Red Hat or CentOS. So here we have a file server. Now, generally, the file servers will be on the local area network, but they don't have to be. Let's go and look at our Server 2012 that we have running here. This is a Server 2012 that I've remoted into. And by default, Server 2012 and 2016 and beyond, they install something known as file and storage services. So they, by default, are a basic file server. And if we click on that, we can see the computer name, the IP address, and we can find out about the volumes of information within this file server, the disks that we have. So for example, we have two disks here. We have a solid state drive. That's where the operating system is stored. And then we have a RAID 1 volume with two drives. It's a 1 terabyte RAID 1 volume. So you can find out all this information. You can find out about storage pools, shares that are on here. And then we can set permissions for all these shares and all this information centrally at this file server. So this is one example of that. And we could do that in a couple ways. We could set the permissions here. So let's say, for example, we have the data folder, or the data share, I should say. If we right click on that and go to properties, we could then expand this to see the permissions. And then we could customize those permissions by the user and by the access type. You could also do this from Windows Explorer or File Explorer. And if we go to our E drive here, that was this BACN folder and then data. If I right click on that and go to properties, we'll see it is indeed shared. And there's the path for the share. And then here's the permissions for that. So that's a basic example of a file server. And generally, these file servers will be on the local area network somewhere where the computers can get to them, but they don't have to be. They could be out on the cloud. And what we have here, we have a firewall that has complete protection for our LAN, but it also has connectivity out to what is most likely a DMZ with a web server, an FTP server, and then a connection out to the internet so our clients can get to the internet, and then some servers out there as well. So more about those as we move on here. Okay, but again, any computer really could be a file server. You could also have network attached storage, which connects directly to your LAN. And we'll be talking about those NAS boxes in another video. The web server, or better yet, the HTTP server, is the one that houses the site, the website of an organization. It could be for informational purposes, could be for e-commerce. Examples of web servers include Microsoft's Internet Information Services, IIS, which can run on a Windows server. Also, Apache HTTP server, which runs on Linux. Now, web servers, normally they are not going to be on the LAN, unless it's something completely internal. But generally, they're going to be either on your DMZ where users on the LAN can access them quickly, but also users on the internet can access them, or they'll just be on the internet, on the cloud. So we have those web servers here. And so let's show an example here. Here's my website, dprocomputer.com, and this site is running WordPress software, so I can post to the site easily. To do that, it needs special software, and we want to make sure it's set up properly. Here we have the control panel for the server that it's stored on. I'm storing it on Lunar Pages, that's the host right now, and we get lots of information here about the server. And we can see down here, operating system that we're running is Linux. That's kind of generic, but really it doesn't matter that much because the different variants of Linux work very similarly. I believe this is CentOS, but what's important is that we're running some type of web server, some type of HTTP server, and that is shown here, the Apache web server and the version. You want to make sure these are up to date, of course. And then to run that WordPress software, we need to have a database, and so we have MySQL installed. I should say MySQL, and also PHP for the code within those pages. And so here's the page for the Apache HTTP server. You could download this and run this on your own Linux box if you wanted to. And finally, print servers. Print servers are basic servers that take control of multiple printers on the network. All the caching of information, the spooling of information, printer pooling, sharing, and permissions is all controlled centrally by that print server. So here we have a print server, and it's controlling a laser and an inkjet. This can be a server like Windows Server, or it could be a hardware device that connects directly to the local area network. And some Soho routers have built-in print servers, and other devices do as well. Okay, so let's take a look here. Here I'm in Windows 10. We are in the control panel, all control panel items, devices, and printers. And if we look down here, we see the printers that we have set up. And here is a network-based printer. This is connected directly to the network, an OfficeJet 8610, so that multiple computers can access it. But you can take control of this printer from a particular system. And so if we right-click on this and go to Printer Properties and take a look, we'll see the printer. And if we go to Ports, we'll see this is set up as a WSD, which is standard for Windows 8 and higher. You can add printers on the network directly by adding a port. We could go to Add Port and add standard TCP/IP port and specify the printer by IP address. From here, we can take control by doing spooling. We can do all kinds of other good stuff, printer pooling, color management, take care of the permissions. And so you can do all this from a regular computer, but if you have lots of printers that are connected to the network, you might want to do this with the server as well. So here's our server 2012 once again. If we go back to the Server Manager dashboard and we scroll down here, you'll see that we have print services installed as well. And with this print services, we could take control of many printers if we needed to and monitor them and take care of that caching of information, the spooling, and any type of sharing and permissions. We take control of those printers from the server first, and then we just make connectivity to those printers from the client. And again, it doesn't have to be an actual server 2012 or 2016 or a Linux box. It could be some type of hardware device that may run Linux, a separate print server device altogether that connects to the network. So a little bit about file servers, web servers, print servers, and you see on this network map here, we have all those. We also have FTP servers. We have one on the DMZ and one out on the internet, because they could reside really wherever you want. Doesn't really matter, but that's the two places you'll generally find them. And the FTP server really is just a type of file server. it houses files for upload and download. And so that's what it does. It's a file transfer protocol server. So really you could consider that a type of file server, but one that we use normally out on the internet. By and large, these are going to run Linux, CentOS, Red Hat, Ubuntu, that type of thing. So there's a little bit about servers, part one. And those are some of the core servers that most organizations require. But there are plenty more that we will discuss as we move forward.